The Generation 2 Pokemon games might be among the most polarizing in the series, but there is an incredible game that makes Gen 2 incredibly fun and challenging all these years later. Crystal Kaizo Plus is a difficulty ROM hack of Pokemon Crystal, designed to be an improved version of the original Crystal Kaizo, made by Sinister Hooded Figure. Being a Gen 2 game, this means that a lot of mechanics that we see today are not present, thus there are no abilities, no natures, no physical special split, and no double battles. What this game does have, however, is a myriad of fantastic quality of life features, such as key items for infinite rare candies, level edging, a portable PC, infinite full restores, a repellent that can be turned on and off, even running shoes. Being the guy I am, I saw this game and decided I was gonna play it as a hardcore Nuzlocke, with the rules displayed on screen. What is up with it? I'm Dahong, and this is the story of my first attempt at a Crystal Kaizo Plus hardcore Nuzlocke. All three starters in this game have their uses, so let's quickly go over the pros of each one. Chikorita provides consistency from start to finish, as Meganium is arguably the best grass type in the game. Cyndaquil gets access to Headbutt before Falkner, opening up your encounter options early on. Totodile gives you a reliable Pokemon for Whitney, and is a good tanky physical attacker. I went with Chikorita since A, it's normally one of the worst starter Pokemon of all time, and B, grass types of its caliber are rather rare in this game. The starter you go with also influences how you do your encounter routing in Falkner Split, as Cyndaquil getting Headbutt the earliest means you can start going for Headbutt Pokemon immediately. This is important because Headbutt gives access to some of the best Pokemon in the game, like Heracross, Fortress, Exeggutor, Aipom, and Ledian. Also, like vanilla GSC, the wild Pokemon found in the grass will be different depending on the time of day. One great thing about this game is the fact that you can easily change the time in the game so that you don't have to wait for a specific encounter table. Since I chose Chikorita, I decided to delay Route 29 until Bugsy Split, as the normal grass encounters there are mediocre at best. The first route I decide to get a new Pokemon is Route 46, north of 29, where I can potentially add another starter to my team. I go at nighttime to maximize my odds at getting another Johto starter, and I wind up with Totodile. On my way to Violet City, I get a Poliwag, Oddish, and Teddiursa on Route 30, Route 31, and Dark Cave respectively. After reaching Violet City, I go to Route 36 and catch a Marie, one of the best Pokemon for Falkner. Then I stop by the ruins of Alp and get a Kabuto. Finally, I catch a Vulpix in Sprout Tower, and those are my Pokemon for the remainder of this split. With all that done, we make our way up Sprout Tower, which has some potentially hard battles, but none more so than the mini-boss, Sage Lee. His Elekid sports great coverage with Spark and Ice Punch, while Sunflora and Sudowoodo are both tanks that can chip you down. It's pretty common to have to risk at least crit or freeze in this battle. For the Elekid, I use Poison Powder with Gloom and pivot between Kabuto and Gloom, which will bait out Spark and Ice Punch respectively. I repeat this until Elekid takes enough poison damage for Vulpix's quick attack to KO. Croconaw takes care of Sudowoodo, and then I use Vulpix for Sunflora, albeit doing so while risking crit and poison from Sludge. Now it's time for the first gym battle of the game against Falkner and his Flying type squad. Choosing Chikorita makes this fight a little harder on average compared to the other starters, but it's a small price to pay in my opinion. More importantly, however, he actually has Johto Pokemon. In fact, only Pidgeotto is not a Gen 2 mon. Spoiler alert by the way, all the gym leaders and other bosses will be mostly using Gen 2 mons as well. Incredible, isn't it? Anyway, I lead Flaffy against him and switch over to Teddiursa since I want to get an easy level up on Flaffy, and Murkrow will choose Nightshade against it. Teddiursa slowly chips down to Murkrow, and then Mantine is next. That just loses to Flaffy, although it could have gone wrong if it hit itself from confusion. Gligar is up, which, by the way, is buffed to have the same stats as Gliscor in this game. In fact, this game actually does this for many Pokemon who receive evolutions in Gen 4, like Aipom and Piloswine, and other mons who have evolutions in future generations also got buffs for the most part. But continuing on, I switch first to Bailey to tank a Rock Throw and bait a Wing Attack onto Kabuto, who beats the Gligar, as long as I can dodge a couple of crits, since Kabuto sucks and has 0 defense DVs. For those who don't know, DVs are determinant values, which are essentially IVs of generations 1 and 2, but the values range from 0 to 15 instead of 0 to 31. Pidgeotto is next, and the strategy for this is to pivot between Flaffy and Kabuto, as it will use Razor Wind on Flaffy, allowing me to get a free hit in, and then Steel Ink on Kabuto. Once again, I need to dodge a crit on Kabuto to come out deathless. In retrospect, I could have probably used Croconaw for Gligar to keep Kabuto healthy, but oh well. Next up is Togekiss, who only knows 2 moves, Metronome and Soft Boiled. Needless to say, a lot could go wrong here. Thankfully it didn't for me, but this Pokemon is absolutely a run killer sometimes. Last but certainly not least is the Noctowl, which I can use Bayleaf for since it doesn't know any flying type moves. Bayleaf poisons Noctowl, it slowly faints, and I earn my first gym badge. With Falkner defeated, I now have access to Headbutt, which I used to get a Spinarak on Route 29 and a Spearow at Violet City. Going into Route 32, I get a Wooper and enter my first Gauntlet. Now what is a Gauntlet, you might ask? Gauntlets in this game are modifications to the route such that once you enter, you cannot access the PC until you finish, meaning that you have to bring one team for all the trainers in that gauntlet. Thus, you have to think pretty hard about what Pokemon to bring, as your team will be locked after you enter with no point of return until you finish. But you know what you don't have to think hard about? Subscribing to my channel. If you enjoyed so far, please subscribe, as it helps my channel grow and I plan to put out Nuzlocking content and more here. Thank you very much. Now back to the video. For this gauntlet, I decided to bring a team of Ariados, Flaffy, Bayleaf, Croconaw, Kabuto, and Quagsire. This here is also the first mistake I make in this run, evolving Wooper this early. I'll get to why when we reach Whitney. The early part of the gauntlet is not too hard, as the Flaffy Bayleaf combo puts in the work. Birdkeeper Peter is the hardest trainer for sure in my opinion, with his demonic birds being really threatening. Thanks to the stick, his Farfetch'd can actually crit you to death, but thankfully that didn't happen with me. Still, it would have been nice if Kabuto could reliably KO with Rock Throw, which it can't since it's female. Yes, you heard me right. In Generation 2, female Pokemon will always have worse attack DBs than males since that's how the gender is decided. Another reason to hate Gen 2 honestly. Game Freak was so sexist at this time. But I digress. Even though I was lucky to dodge crit against a Farfetch'd, I had to risk a crit against a Doduo on Flaffy, and the Delibird is actually really tough. I used Croconaw for that because it's tanky enough to eat a few wing attacks, and then hit back hard enough to take it down within a couple moves. Before going into the Union Cave, I get an Old Rod and run back to Cherry Grove City to fish for a Pokemon, and I get... This Pokemon is basically the definition of mid, even in this game, despite the minor buffs that it does receive. Krabby would have been much nicer, since if you have Krabby, areas where you can Rock Smash will net you a guaranteed Shuckle, and Shuckle is actually one of the best Pokemon in the game, due to its ability to tank booms and its access to String Shot. In Union Cave, I catch a Slowpoke and chug along to the mini-boss Pokemaniac Larry. There was an important piece of info I didn't know about the AI that could have potentially cost me the run right here. You see, in this game, if a Pokemon has Rollout, it has a really high chance to use it, even if there are higher damaging options. And because of that, I could have easily and arguably should have lost Kabuto to the Lickitung, especially after the misclick. But oh well, never punished I guess. Bayleaf takes care of the Furret by using Poison Powder and Synthesis, while Fearow beats the Smeargle. On Route 33, I further my Headbutt table and catch an Ekans, and do the same thing in Azalea, which nets me a Heracross, an Elite Four Pokemon in this game. Then I go west to Ilex Forest and get myself an Elekid at night. We encounter Team Rocket for the first time in Slowpoke Well. There's this grunt that has a Dratini that will spam Dragon Rage on you, which is one of the strongest moves for this point in the game, as basically nothing can take 2 of them. This is when Corsola was actually really useful, as I was able to survive 2 Dragon Rages thanks to the Oran Berry, come close to KOing with Ice Beam, and have Ariados finish it off. The last grunt is the hardest for sure, but part of that is due to the fact that you have to bring the same team to the upcoming rival battle. On top of that, my only reliable answer to Kadabra is Spearow, but it had to be at the level cap to KO, and being one of the most essential mons for Bugsy, my use for it was limited in the gym. Quagsire handles the coughing, and then I use Kabuto and Heracross for the Raticate. The rival battle is a really interesting one, going up against a Ditto, Mr. Mime, and his starter. I lead Kabuto so that Ditto copies it, and I can take it out with Bayleaf. For Mr. Mime, I pivot to Kabuto on the Fire Punch to bait a Thunder Punch onto Quagsire, and Quagsire takes it down after a few hits. Quilava I handle by using Croconaw, who 2-hit KOs with Bubble Beam after Double Edge Recoil. We then challenge Bugsy for the Hive Badge, and in this game he has a very complete and balanced team, as you can see. He leads Butterfree, while I lead Kabuto, making Butterfree use Giga Drain and allowing me to level up my Kabuto in the process after Fearow one-shots the Butterfly. This is so that Kabuto risks fewer crit rolls against the Scyther later. Next up is Dunsparce, which I beat using my pre-poisoned Bayleaf. I did this on purpose because Dunsparce carries Glare, and having a status prevents it from trying to paralyze me. Bayleaf poisons the Dunsparce, and then just heals up a few times until Dunsparce gets into a range where Heracross's Rock Smash can KO. There is a gentleman upstairs in the PC who will allow you to pre-poison or pre-paralyze Pokemon in your party. Next up is Ariados, which I first pivot to Quagsire to beta Giga Drain, then switch to Arbok to tank that move. I need Arbok to dodge a crit to chip down Ariados, and then I eventually sack it to get Fearow in safely and revenge kill. That marks the first step of the run. Rest in peace, Arbok. The chip was necessary because Fearow did not KO Ariados at full health. Shuckle gets owned by Bayleaf as it slowly dies from poison, and I have plenty of Synthesis PP to heal up when necessary. Kabuto then takes on Scyther, but has to dodge a crit on Steelwing again because its defense is so freaking bad. Finally, Pinsir is the last mon remaining, which I beat using a combination of Heracross, Quagsire, and Fearow, earning me my second gym badge. Now that we're on the Whitney Split, we can talk about one of my biggest mistakes that I have made during this run. Due to my poor reading comprehension skills, I thought that the level cap for this split was 30, not 31. The first way this proved costly was on Route 34, where we experienced back-to-back battles for the first time. Since Generation 2 doesn't have double battles, the game instead throws back-to-backs where you have to battle more than one trainer without healing in between. But anyway, due to the fact that I thought the level cap was 30, it meant I didn't have Giga Drain on Bayleaf for these 3 trainers, which would have helped a lot with the passive healing and making the battles less risky. Furthermore, due to a misplay on my part, I was forced to sacrifice Corsola. To add insult to injury, I evolved my Croconaw at level 30, believing I had to for the level cap. But what that meant was I didn't have submission on Feraligatr for Whitney, which Croconaw would have learned at level 31. Essentially, this defeated the purpose of even getting Totodile early in the first place. As a result of this blunder on my part, Whitney was going to be a lot harder than she had to have been. But moving on, in this game the buildings are rearranged in Goldenrod City, such that you have to get through the underground in order to reach Whitney's gym. Before I do that though, first I head on over to the Goldenrod department store to buy some evolutionary stones in order to evolve some of the Pokemon that I have. And then I go to the radio tower to hatch my Togepi egg. Togetic is one of the best 2 Encore users, with the other being Ledian. There are a few trainers that you have to battle in the underground, including a couple of super nerds whose Pokemon all know self-destruct. One odd quirk of the AI in this game, however, is that it will never use self-destruct or explosion if it sees kill with those moves. Thus, if you pre-damage your Pokemon to be dead to boom, you won't have to worry about potentially getting exploded on. We're now at Whitney's gym. Before facing her, we must deal with 2 sets of back-to-backs. The first one in particular is actually no joke. I lead Ninetales against her and get a lucky burn, then use Poliwrath for the Lickitung, but not before it flinches me twice, forcing me to gamble a little bit. Quagsire beats the Flaffy, and Ninetales does the same to Gloom. The next trainer is up. She leads with Seaking, so I immediately switch to Gator, who chips it down before Electabuzz cleans it up. Quagsire solos the Ninetales, although I do experience a really insane sequence as shown here. Are you kidding me? So, yeah, that was quite crazy to say the least. Ampharos takes down both Togetic and Xatu. Now it's time to witness the most sus Whitney battle of all time. I bet you think that her Miltank in the vanilla games made your life hell back then. Well, I can assure you that she's child's play in those games compared to this one. At this point, it was pretty likely for me to wipe, for a few reasons. One, I didn't have submission on Feraligatr, so its use was only for Girafarig. And two, remember how I said that me not delaying my Wooper evolution into Quagsire was a mistake earlier? Well, that's because if I did delay my Wooper evolution, I could have had Earthquake on Quagsire by this point, since Wooper learns Earthquake at level 29, while Quagsire learns it at level 35. That meant I had to test my RNG against the Nidoqueen with Magnitude. Needless to say, it didn't work out, so I had to switch to Heracross to finish off Nidoqueen. Feraligatr beats the Girafarig with 2 crunches, but not without risking a crit. I send in Ariados to Toxic Chansey, then disable the T-Wave. With Ariados at low HP, my only option is to sack it to the Clefable, who will be using a random move, as it sees a kill with all of its moves. I use Quagsire to chip it down, and Heracross to finish it off. Next comes in the Miltank, her infamous Pokemon in the vanilla games. The strat is to bait Earthquake onto Togekiss by sending in Kabuto, then using Thunder Wave. Because my Togetic is male, I had to attack through a track, which I successfully did luckily. I repeat the pivot sequence and then use Encore on Earthquake to lock Miltank into that move before I eventually take it down with enough Psychics. Aipom is her final Pokemon, and as I mentioned before, this thing is buffed to have Ambipom stats, so this battle was far from over. Dodging yet another crit, I successfully paralyze Aipom and have Kabuto take it on while I again, you guessed it, dodge the crit. Insanely fraudulent fight that I feel like I absolutely did not deserve to win. I mean, look at my party coming out of it. Everybody is in the red, except for Ariados, but that's because it straight up died in the battle. Unironically, I think that 9 times out of 10, I would have lost this fight, but you get lucky sometimes, I guess. The question remains, how much longer could my luck last before it would eventually run out? Nevertheless, we move on with our journey and go north to make our way to Ecruteak City. On my way, I further my headbutt tables by obtaining a Pineco on Route 35 and a Hoot Hoot on Route 37, and catch a Nidorina in the National Park. Fortress is an elite Pokemon this game, with only one weakness, good defensive stats, and access to Rapid Spin, which is huge for the Radio Tower and Rocket Hideout sections later. Before we continue, I'd like to talk about one of the trainers on Route 35, Bugcatcher Arnie. This is his team, and on paper, it sounds like it's super free. And then, you realize that his Pokemon are actually level 80. That's where the gimmick comes in. However, it turns out that if you have Fortress or Macargo, Arnie's actually hella free, since Fortress can take so many hits cause he's just that guy, while Macargo has access to recover. If you don't have either of these two mons, however, then Arnie can unironically be some trouble for you. In Ecruteak City, I meet Bill, who returns to Goldenrod, after he finishes his rant about time capsules and whatever. I head back to meet him there and he gives me an Eevee. In this game, you will want to evolve your Eevee into either Umbreon or Jolteon. While both are viable options for the second round of the Elite Four, they each have their own merits. Umbreon is fantastic for the various psychic types that you face. Jolteon is the best Aerodactyl answer in the game by far, and a fast electric type is always nice to have. I decide to wait until later to evolve my Eevee, so I go back to Ecruteak City and head on over to the Burn Tower. There we meet Yusi, who goes on and on about how badly he wants to meet Suicune, and well, actually, you guys probably already know his lore, so I'm just gonna stop right there. Going further into the tower, we meet our rival again. This time, he has a full team for this battle. Everyone goes up against Dragonair and Scizor, while the remaining 4 depend on your starter. Among Victreebel, Arcanine, and Octillery, you don't battle the one with the type advantage against you. So in my case, I went up against Victreebel and Octillery. Chikorita gamers battle Hitmonlee, Cyndaquil choosers go against Hitmontop, and Totodile users have Hitmonchan as a foe. Finally, of course, it's his starter Pokemon. The battle itself is not too hard, although I did make a pretty big misplay by switching Ninetales onto Scizor's Metal Claw. I should have switched to Slowking first, to bait an HP bug, which is weaker. For context, Metal Claw is buffed to have 100 power in this game. After taking a Metal Claw, Ninetales is now dead to both Rock Slide and Earthquake from Hitmonlee, meaning Fearow wasn't a safe switch as seen here. Kinda feels like I kinda have to dodge crit no matter what. I'm just gonna take the risk. Crap. Hey, don't crit me. Never punished. I guess you could say that the caveat is that if HP Bug crit, the same thing would have happened anyway. But still, it's best to maximize your chances of victory as much as possible. Now of course you gotta wonder, how many more mistakes would I be able to get away with on this run? As so far, I feel like I've been really lucky. Morty's Gym is next, and there I experienced a combination of mistakes on my part and some bad luck. As a result, before Morty, I say goodbye to 3 Pokemon in Beedrill, Ursaring, and Kabuto. The copium is that they all had pretty bad stats, so it honestly could have been a lot worse. But now for the Morty battle. He is considered to be one of the biggest run killers because somehow he has even more RNG variants than Whitney. I was expecting that I would wipe here, but even then I figured I really didn't have much to lose. The battle starts off with an Ampharos vs Crobat matchup, where my win condition for this one is for Crobat to confuse Ray and attack, and then not crit. Unfortunately, Crobat attacks twice, meaning that giving Ampharos a Person Berry turned out to be in vain. Not only that, the Stantler that comes in now will use random move, and it uses Return on Fearow, which is the worst case scenario. If Ampharos was healthier, then the Stantler would have used Earthquake, making Fearow a free switch. Fortunately though, I was able to dodge the crit on the return. Did I mention that this Stantler also holds a Bright Powder? If that doesn't scream Monka-S, I don't know what does. But as it turns out, fortresses him, and handles the Stantler with some Pin Missiles. Gengar is next, and I use Quagsire's EQ to one-shot, but not before Ice Punch crits. The poison is to prevent Hypnosis Spam and other unlucky status conditions, like what I did with Bayleaf against Bugsy earlier. Hypno, which I caught as a Drowsy on Route 34, is my Mischievous counter, as it can take a couple hits and 2 KO Shadow Ball. For Umbreon, I poison it with Meganium and eventually faints after a certain point. Finally, Lantern falls to Meganium. I earned the Fog Badge, but it certainly didn't feel like that I deserved it. How I got out of this battle with a victory, let alone deathless, is beyond me. To the west is Route 38, which presents us with the next gauntlet. But before I can go there, I need to get access to Surf. Unfortunately, none of the Pokemon that I have can learn Surf naturally, which means that I had to go and battle the Kimono Girls in order to get the Hidden Machine myself. This is where I decide to evolve my Eevee into an Umbreon, as I had no answer for the Espeon otherwise. I mean, just look at what's happening right now. This Espeon stood no chance against my Umbreon, and this is a reason to consider evolving your Eevee into Umbreon instead of Jolteon, despite the big benefits that Jolteon does give you, because Psychic types are actually really hard to beat in this game, but a lot of them don't have ways to take down Umbreon. But if you do evolve your Eevee into one of the other 3, then you're actually just throwing. Now it's time for Gauntlet number 2 for real. The first couple of trainers are actually pretty easy, but the gauntlet goes off the rails against last Dana when I accidentally misclick Steel Wing instead of Drill Peck against her Victory Bell. Oh shoot, I misclicked. Uh-oh. Don't crit me. And then the Focus Band procs the next turn. Okay. Oh no. I forgot about Focus Band. Oh. Right, we are gonna have to steer a little bit now. Remember, since this is a gauntlet, I cannot switch out Pokemon in my box for dead ones in my party, and it goes from bad to worse against Beauty Valerie. I accidentally don't equip a Cherry Berry on my Electabuzz, and to be completely honest, I don't think that a post-commentary will really be able to justify what happened here, so just see for yourself. Okay, that's not great. Okay, well, that's annoying. Dude. Okay, I think that's the case. We have to switch into, like, I don't know who we switch in. You, I guess? Dude. Are you kidding me? What the f... Okay, now what? I think we might be wiping here, honestly. So basically, everything that could have gone wrong up to this point went wrong. Later, I lose Slowking to Vileplume, who would not have been a problem if I still had Fearow. Heading to the final trainer of the gauntlet, Birdkeeper Toby, I only have 3 Pokemon left. I was tilted for my mistakes and luck, even though I felt like the bad luck was inevitably gonna catch up to me at some point, with all the other good luck that I have been getting thus far. But because I was playing tilted, it made me extremely hasty in my decisions, and I go into this battle not realizing I only had 1 PP left on my Meganium. Oh, Hypnosis turn 1? Oh wait, I don't have Kiki Train PP anymore. Out of moves that can do damage, I switch into Gator, and the worst possible thing happens as seen here. Don't freeze. Unfortunately, Gator is unable to get out of freeze and falls to the Golduck, but there is one more out. Quick Claw to not proc on my Electabuzz, and that's exactly what happened. The good one at least. Dude, I feel like my one win condition was for the Quick Claw there to not proc. And I think that just kills me. Dude, and I'm not, that didn't even KO. Yeah. Dead run. It was a good one though. See ya. And that was all she wrote. If the Quick Claw didn't proc there, then Electabuzz would have still died to Pidgeot, but the bird would have fainted from recoil, and so I still would have had a chance against a Berserking Murkrow. Not a high chance, but a chance nonetheless. Overall, I really enjoyed playing this game, and it pretty much has everything I have wanted in a Gen 2 game. I'm looking forward to playing this some more and not making the same mistakes that I did in Attempt 1. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. In the comments, let me know what you think of this game. Have you tried it out? Does watching this video make you want to play this game too? I plan to do more runs as well, and you can catch me live on my Twitch channel. And with that, I'm out. See you guys next time.